I'd like to call to order the Town of McCandless Council's regular business meeting for June 25th, 2018. The invocation and leading the Pledge of Allegiance will be by Councilman McCandless.
Dear Lord, this evening we pray for the welfare of our town and all of its residents. As we approach the celebration of July 4th, which of course memorializes the birth of our nation, we give thanks for the many blessings we have enjoyed as residents of this community and as citizens of this great nation. Grant us patience, understanding, vision, strength, and wisdom as we attend to the important municipal business before us tonight. We ask that you protect our firefighters, police, and EMS personnel whose duties without warning can expose them to great harm. We pray that you safeguard the men and women who are defending our country, especially those whose service places them in dangerous theaters of operations in foreign lands. We are grateful that our fellow citizens have assumed this awesome patriotic duty on our behalf and for their predecessors whose paths they follow. Console their families who have suffered losses. We pray that our national and state leaders will work with discernment to achieve just results for the advancement and welfare of our diverse population. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Motion to approve the minutes of Council's regular business meeting of May.
I move to approve the minutes of Council's regular business meeting of May 19, 2018, as submitted to each member of Council.
I second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any comments, any changes that need to be made to the minutes from May? All those in favor of accepting the Council's regular business meeting minutes from May 19, 2018 as submitted to each member of council, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? The minutes are approved. I'd like to recognize John Notoro. Can you stand, John? Hi, this is John. He is from Troop 171, which meets at Ingomar Methodist. And you're visiting us today for your government badge or?
It's for
Communication Merit Badge. Thank you so much for coming. We're glad to have you. Second, under announcements, the Allegheny County has announced its 2018 vacant property, side yard, and blighted structure program. Applications postmarked by August 31st, 2018 will be accepted by Allegheny County under this program. Number 5, I'd like to call to order the public hearing on the ordinance now tentatively identified as ordinance number 1477, an ordinance to review an amendment to the Town of McCandless zoning code requested by Sheets, Inc. This amendment would be added to the conditional use statements in Article 1328 of the town zoning code to allow 2 service stations at a synchronized intersection within the residential commercial RC zoning district. The RC zoning district extends south from the intersection of Prescott Drive to Route 19 to the McCandless-Ross boundary line south of Birch Avenue. This is a public hearing, which is a special kind of public meeting for the purpose of the governing body to accept public comment and testimony on local legislation. It will be the council's discretion and the responsibility to make objective decisions in the community's best interest based on the facts that they will hear tonight. All comments and questions will be treated as comments. The public hearing will be reviewed at the zoning committee meeting on July 9th, 2018. That's when council will have their question answered and to consider all the comments that are made here tonight. Formal action about this ordinance will be taken at council's regular business meeting on July 23rd, 2018. Again, the public is welcome to comment on the proposed ordinance only. That does not include specific site information. Comments are to be directed to the chair. Each person may comment for one time up to 5 minutes. Again, all questions will be treated as comments. We'll begin with our land use administrator to explain the proposed ordinance change.
Thank you, Council President Zachary. I appreciate that. You did a good job of introducing this. And a couple of key points that the Council President just said was this is a zoning text amendment. And that's what we're here for tonight, is for a text amendment. It isn't a hearing on the conditional use itself, and it's not a site plan presentation. So the focus tonight is strictly on the ordinance itself, the text amendment itself. So for those of you who have been here quite a few times, I'm sure that you are aware of what a conditional use is and what a permitted use is. But for those of you who may be in your first time attending or aren't quite aware of what the different terminology is, there are different types of uses. One of the uses is permitted use. A permitted use is something that is just straight out permitted, and then if it is permitted and it's a new building, for example, then the council will hear a land development proposal. The land development proposal would address items like lighting and traffic and buffers and sidewalks and stormwater. They don't have a right to require additional conditions, but they can ask an applicant to put on additional conditions. The use that Sheets falls under in the RC zoning district is a conditional use. A conditional use is a use which is permitted, however, it is permitted with conditions. And those conditions are somewhat set forth in the ordinance itself. We talk about signage and lot size and those kind of buffer zones and those kind of things. We also, council has a right to ask for additional conditions, such as lighting and traffic studies and other types of items. The standard items that we mentioned, the sidewalks, the stormwater, that's all going to be required no matter what happens. So again, refocusing, this isn't about the conditional use itself, but it is a proposed text amendment by Sheets. The text was submitted by Sheets. Right now, the ordinance, as a conditional use, permits a gas stations within 1,500 feet of each other. They don't have to be in an intersection and they don't have to be signalized. The proposed text amendment says there can be 2 gas stations, service stations, at a signalized intersection. So that's what this is all about. It's an amendment to section 1328.11 of the codified ordinances of the town of McCandless. So if this goes forward and there will be a discussion at the next zoning committee meeting, I believe it's July 9th, and then it would be voted on at the next business meeting of town council. I believe that one is July 23rd. So if this goes forward, if Sheets goes forward, then they would start a conditional use procedure. So just so everybody, again, to reiterate, this is only about the text amendment. It's not about the site design at this time. At this point, unless council has any questions for me, I'll turn it over to Ryan Wotus, who is the attorney representing Sheets. Ryan?
Thank you, Bruce. Good evening. My name is Ryan Wotus. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Goldberg, Kamen, and Garvin, here on behalf of Sheets Incorporated with respect to the text amendment that is currently pending before council this evening. I'd initially like to start out and thank council for their time and also for your staff's time in reviewing the application, taking the time to educate yourselves with respect to what the request is, look at the RC district, look at existing zoning, in order to fully evaluate the request that's before you this evening. As Mr. Betty had indicated, he gave a very thorough background in terms of the RC district, the limited request that's before council tonight to just adjust the spacing requirement of 1,500 feet to permit more than one service station at a signalized intersection in the RC district. The only other background I'd like to provide from the perspective of the actual zoning district is the RC district is only located in one area in the entirety of McCandless Township. It's approximately 0.7 miles long and generally consists of only properties that front along Perry Highway, which is a 4-lane commercial corridor extending from Ross Township to basically 0.7 miles, approximately where the surface parking lot is for the CCAC North Campus. With that being said, there is, again, no land development approval actually before council this evening. This is just with respect to making that one modification. I would note we do have with us this evening individuals that can speak to environmental aspects, lighting, and other items. However, I don't believe that those items are before the board. As Bruce had indicated, we're looking specifically to the use itself. However, we do have two individuals that will be speaking specifically with respect to the request before council this evening. My understanding is council will be proceeding initially with public comment from taxpayers and residents, and then ultimately we would have a brief time period at the end to go ahead and address issues and concerns raised by both residents and also council. So I will reserve those two individuals for later comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we would like to open up the floor for public comment. Please, one at a time, come and identify yourself and your address.
And if you could, before we get started, there's a court reporter taking down all the testimony today, so if you could make sure you speak slowly and clearly, and we can only hear one person at a time, so if the rest of the folks could stay quiet while other people are commenting, we'd appreciate it. Thanks.
My name's Mark Hamilton. I live at 224 Montclair Avenue, along with my wife. My father lived there for 25 years. We've been in there for 15. My sister-in-law lives next door with my brother, who passed away recently, but they were in there for 40 years. And we're here tonight because it's the disinformation and no information that we received to have this move forward. We've never had any issues, Don, on Montclair. It's a nice street. Everybody on the street has become grandparents in the last year. And there's a lot of traffic that comes down that street. For us to have the school bus stop at the top of the hill is number one concern for the traffic flying into Montclair to shoot into the Sheets. And we're not here against Sheets. We have nothing against Sheets or council or anybody. We just want to make an amicable solution to this issue because we feel it's not right for our side of the street. The kids from CCAC, the whole deal, I don't think is good. We want to be part. I know there's a 10-year plan to fix up that area between Cumberland and Perrymont, and we want to be part of that. That's why we've been there for so long. That's why I brought that up. We love living in McCandless. But there's some things that just shouldn't be. We shouldn't be changing an ordinance or a text for a company that wants to be bigger. I think there's other areas that it could happen in. And if it was in your area or your town or your street, I don't think you'd want them at the top of your hill. We have wells. There's a lot of concern, and our concern didn't arise until we heard that the decision was 4-2 to move on with this meeting. That's the first we heard about anything. So the disinformation in a lot of the residents on both sides, on Gloria, Montclair, is a big concern. That's why we went and got the signs that we did. We tried to be proactive. We don't want to upset anybody. We want business in McCandless, but at this time, it just doesn't feel right for us. If you lived on Montclair and you know how hard it is to get in and out of that street on the 19, you'd realize. As the kids every day you're worried about the bus stop up there because the people fly through there to get to CCAC because they're running late. But that's our concerns, and I hope that you take it to heart.
Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. In the matter of expediting and letting as many people speak as possible, if you don't mind just kind of holding all your applause till everyone's had a chance to speak. Next person.
Mr. McKim, can I ask you to pass these around to all the council members? Sure. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Stephen Gronsky, and I have lived at 136 Montclair for over 41 years. I'd like to express my disappointment that the town council has given in to consider this proposal to change the ordinance. We all know that the real reason Sheetz is asking for this is because they have a dispute with the current landlord over who has the right to have that single gas station. Rather than litigate that, they want us to allow them to rewrite our ordinance in order to circumvent the process. Exactly why are we involved? The RC zoning ordinance was written and approved before the fact to maintain the character of the zone and should not be entertaining a request by Sheetz to solve their issue, which they should have anticipated in the first place. They have attorneys. The residents near any zone district have the right to expect that they will be protected by the laws as they exist. When we allow the law to be changed by one party after the fact to suit only them, and they already have a specific purpose in mind, it's just plain wrong. It's like moving the goalpost once the game has started already. In fairness to all parties, this proposal should be rejected for that reason alone. A yes vote would not provide them with any exclusion to a barrier they created for themselves, and it would not prohibit them from putting a gas station there. Okay, I've passed around copies of the RC zoning ordinance. You take a look at first page, Zone 1. Note 1 states the district is to assure the harmony of the residential nature of the area. This project, and most people's estimation, violates that. Note 2, also on the first page, says that the topography exposes the residents, especially on our side, on the east side, such that they need protection. The primary determinant of the district regulation is to continue the healthful and pleasant qualities. It specifically mentioned garish commercial exteriors. What in the town is more garish than that abominable Sheetz canopy? Note 3, section 1328.10, back a couple pages. It says no access shall be granted from a residential street without council approval, and that should not be granted if the access would substantially alter the character of the area, which it would, or if it would contribute to a safety hazard, which it also would. Section 1328, note 4, 11, one of the conditional uses is listed as an ice cream store.
Could you slow down just a little bit? I see the court reporter struggling
I'm sorry.
to keep up with that.
I apologize. I have a lot to say, and I don't get 5 minutes. Okay? I'm not going to finish now. Okay? Okay, one of the conditional uses listed in there is an ice cream store. I only noted here because it states that one has to be closed by 11 p.m. That speaks volumes to the spirit of the law. The hours of operation are obviously intended to be a prime consideration. 24/7, 365 is not what was meant as being okay when the law was created before the fact. Okay, note 6 says one of the permitted uses is a retail store, which is defined as, quote, only those enterprises which serve only the day-to-day convenience need of one neighborhood within the community. Sheetz draws its business from a huge area, many, many times the size of the neighborhood. It's a used corporation, and their presence violates the letter as well as the spirit of that law. Their present location is Zone C3. They're okay there. The current RC businesses are all complied. They're great. Now, one of the reasons that's been stated for approving this project is that the traffic signals will correct an unsafe traffic situation. I'm here to say baloney. I have passed copies of the accident reports from PennDOT, printed from their website. You'll see that in 3 years, there were a total of 16 accidents in the area bounding Perry Highway, Harmony Parkway, Gloria, and Montclair. Still going too fast? There were a total of 0 fatalities and 0 serious injuries in those accidents. 4 of the 16 accidents occurred at Montclair. It's very misleading to claim that safety will be improved when actually creating a very complex, confusing intersection and not stalling the one light that will help. A quarter of the accidents were on a street that only has 17 houses. The other streets are all served by thousands of houses. Okay, we know that Sheets is in business to make money. I appreciate that, I like that. And we know that the developer's job is to skew the narrative to be the most advantageous for their client. Okay? But we as a community have to decide where we draw the line. I would submit that although we must have some level of tolerance with businesses, which we do, we have plenty of businesses there now that we deal with, that this project is just a bridge way too far. 24/7, 365, Christmas, Easter, New Year's, all day, all night. I'm done. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Grosky.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
My name is Adam Gronsky, current resident 9041 Woodview Drive. There's a property with a house on it, 131 Montclair Avenue, that they are proposing to be included within this development. It is shown as being zoned C3. I have passed around copies. I'll wait for them a moment just for them to get around. You will note in there the Article 1331.03, that'll be on the third page of the pamphlet that you've received, says access shall be from an arterial or collector road, not a dead-end residential street. This is obviously a mistake that should have been corrected when the RC district was created in 1994. The house on the property is still the exact same house that was built in 1910 and exists to this day today. It should have reverted to an R2 zoned property like all the rest of the properties facing Montclair Avenue. According to the county website, the property is assessed as a residential property. I have passed around a copy of that to you as well, you will note. All owners of that property have paid county, township, and school district taxes at the lower residential assessment rate. Now that it has been neglected for a period of 33 years, they're expecting to be rewarded for their total lack of effort in making an undeserved windfall at the expense of the McCandless residents' enjoyment of life by selling it as a commercial property. Surely you can see the perverse nature of that. It is, was, and has always been a residential property and should be considered as such. I have two young boys, spent a lot of time at my parents' house on Montclair. With the gas station there, they would be exposed to nauseous cloud that emanates from the gas station, especially two within the proximity by the proposed ordinance. Working at the facility and pumping your own gas is a small risk, but staying in the vicinity for long periods of time is a greater risk. All gas stations have a cloud of volatile gases around them that dissipates out to adjacent areas. Benzene is arguably the most harmful to human health. Adverse health effects include cancer, anemia, increased susceptibility to infections, and low birth weight. According to the World Health Organization, there is no safe level for benzene. This is a risk that is not worth taking. You also note within your pamphlet on page 1 that there are 2 active EPA litigations against Sheets Incorporated within the state of Pennsylvania. May I suggest, Council, a baseline test be executed to establish a current level so that we can work as a township to avoid any potential future litigation and responsibility on behalf of McCandless Township. I grew up on Montclair Avenue and went to North Allegheny. My friends and I had many good time playing games and sports in the spacious yards, enjoying the quiet and privacy that the location afforded. Growing up, I had some extremely wealthy friends that loved to stay overnight. Why? Because they said it felt homey. That neighborhood has always been a great place to bring up a family on a modest salary and receive a great high school education. That opportunity and upbringing that my parents granted me let me get my bachelor's and master's from Duquesne so I could obtain employment, which made it possible for me to purchase my own home back in McCandless. I was previously out in Beaver. I was able to afford and get back here into McCandless. I look at this project and can see that if it does happen, it will ruin the neighborhood and remove that opportunity for many families going forward, especially those who are lucky enough to have parents who sacrificed to make sure I could benefit from all the opportunities McCandless Township provides. I ask you to vote against any and all votes that would advance this project from now on. It is a bad idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonte. Please hold your applause to the end. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
Hello. My name's Marilyn DeSanti. I live at 8725 Casa Grande Drive. And I'm just here to represent our neighborhood. I've been in our neighborhood for 32 years. I have watched over those 32 years have one end of our plan become like a Las Vegas. At night, driving up to Ridgemont Road, it looks like Las Vegas up there. The last thing I want to see is it developed on the other side of the plan as well. I realized that over the years that was going to change, but not to the degree that it did. And now that it's starting to infiltrate the other side, I feel like we're being squeezed. The topography of the land in our plan is many hills and valleys. I personally can see the sheets currently from my bedroom window right now. Having a larger sheets, affecting those, or overseeing those hills and valleys, I'm sure more people are going to be affected than just me. Tierra will be at risk for a landslide. Has there been any studies done on landsliding with all this landslides that we've been hearing about over the last year? Has a study been done on that at all? And what did it show? In addition, they were talking about a retaining wall with a guide rail. What privacy is that going to provide to anybody that lives on that hillside on Tierra? I think that they've touched base on some of the environmental issues. I personally had an experience, well, I didn't have a personal experience, my husband had. His grandfather moved here from Italy and started a business. That business required him to have many trucks. So they had to put in tanks for the gas stations. After 20 years, he was required to dig up those tanks. My husband witnessed those tanks being dug up. There was nothing to them. Now, they say that things are more protective today, that they're going to be coated with some type of concrete. I tend to believe that the things that were built years ago held up better than what they do today. So what is the plan with regards to putting something in place so that the infiltration for these poor people that live on Montclair that have wells, that they won't be affected by all of this? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. DeSanti.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you for allowing me to speak here today. My name's Craig Doverspike. I live at 170 Montclair Avenue. I've lived here for about 12 years. Really enjoy living in McCandless, but I would like the council to consider the following. An accelerated diesel truck emits 114 decibels and even 94 decibels while idling. Early morning garbage trucks emit 100 decibels, which definitely does not belong near homes. We would have to be dealing with 24-hour lights and loud music. The comprehensive economic development strategy for the federal government suggests that any noise over 45 decibels is a detriment, and that a minimum separation of 300 feet between homes and late-night, all-night stores. To Sheets, I would hope that they would respect our neighborhoods and communities where we raise our children and live. Without strong communities, Sheets would not exist. United we stand. There is great strength in unity. Together, we could find a more suitable location and quit wasting time, money, and effort. Let's move the project forward at a more suitable and profitable location. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oberspiker. President? Okay.
One more?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My name is Javier Infantes. I live in 8696 Casa Grande Drive. I didn't come prepared as pretty much everybody else here, but while reading this, I just see this. It says, whereas the town council finds that it'll further my health and my neighbor's health, safety, and welfare of all the residents around the area. Now, just to think about this, if I stand and live next to one gas station, will it be worse than living next to 2 gas stations or 100 gas stations? So I just want the town council to think about that. It is the duty of the council to find if this amendment will further my health and safety of my neighbors. That's about it. I know changing the wording won't do anything, but we'll know that it's just a hurdle for Sheets to go to the next step. And we don't want that.
Thank you, Mr. Fontaine. Is there another citizen that would like to speak? I think she's gotten up about 3 times.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Linda Hamilton, and I live at 212 Montclair Avenue. Currently, at the present Sheets location, there are a total of 4 traffic cycles for the lights. The northbound Perry Highway with a left turn, the southbound Perry Highway, Old Perry Highway, and Gloria. Those are the 4 cycles. The traffic light sequence works pretty well, except if you want to negotiate in or out of Montclair Avenue. We have tolerated it this way for a long time. I've been there for 30-some years, and it's been this way. But we do the best we can considering the situation. We haven't seen all the details in the traffic light design, but we can draw some apparent conclusions about how it will work. Northbound Perry Highway, Gloria, and Old Perry Highway will remain the same. Southbound Perry Highway would be altered slightly, and an additional light would be installed to exit the Sheets. I don't claim to be a traffic engineer, but some things are readily apparent. The changes would result in at least 5 cycles, which is greater than the present 4, and this would slow things down, creating more of a traffic bottleneck. Right now, traffic commonly backs up past Fred's Auto, Amco Transmission, and past Montclair Avenue, creating dangerous situations for motorists. 1 or 2 more cycles of traffic signals could push traffic and congestion even farther. On occasion, it's gone all the way back to Fairview Avenue. Leaving things as they are isn't ideal, but changing it to suit only Sheets has the potential to really create a mess. In addition, there will also be a 9-second delay built into the new traffic light design. How is that going to help us? 9 seconds is a long time to add to a cycle. On top of that, the Institute of Traffic Engineers says that each pumping position in a gas station generates approximately 115 trips a day, each pump station. If you add to that the convenience store, they say of 2,000 square feet, it would generate approximately 2,000 trips per day. This calculates to an overall total of 3,000 trips to the new location. That will congest the intersection even more and create a traffic nightmare, with another 5-way intersection backup, much like the one at Sewickley Oakmont. The current store is only 60% the size of the proposed store, so it's considerably fewer trips. It's 1,800 trips in a day, as opposed to the 3,000, which would happen with the potential growth. It's apparent that the town administration is going gaga over receiving close to $1.5 million in free traffic light investment. But that investment's only necessary because Sheets wants to move. The town is better off without that investment. Claims that proposed traffic light sequence will improve the safety is unsubstantiated. School children waiting for and getting off the bus will now be subjected to countless opportunities to be struck by a vehicle, since there will be a steady stream of eager Sheets customers flying closely past to get their coffee. Community college students who now walk straight down the sidewalk and give Sheets a lot of business will be forced to walk further and cross a 4-lane highway to get to the store, unless they drive there, okay? If they cross by using the buttons at the crosswalks, That will greatly multiply the number of times traffic flow is interrupted. If they cross illegally, which kids will do, they risk getting struck by a motorist. Who said this project will make things safer? If they drive there, that will just add to the traffic congestion. Was any of this considered in the traffic study? Requiring Montclair residents to drive through the Sheetz lot to exit their homes is absolutely ridiculous. There is no right-of-way filed with our deeds to drive through Sheetz. There will be numerous unsuspecting pedestrians leaving their vehicles while fueling to go into the store that we could hit. There are dozens of parked cars that could be backed out and other vehicles negotiating their way in and out of the area. Many motorists are likely to miss the Sheetz and end up riding down Montclair.
I'm sorry, Mrs.
That's okay.
Hamilton, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Is there another citizen?
Good evening. My name is Nancy Rupp, and I live at 231 Montclair Avenue for over 30 years. I am here to discuss child safety at the school bus stop, students at CCAC, increased cars in our neighborhood, and alcohol sales. First of all, children at the school bus stop would be a few steps from vehicles, approximately 1,700 cars each day, entering and exiting Sheetz from Montclair, creating a very dangerous situation. What is the plan for gas trucks delivering gas to Sheetz? What is Sheetz proposing to keep the school bus stop safe? I understand North Allegheny School Bus Department was notified and agree there is a school bus stop at Montclair. Their response was there's only a couple of students waiting for a bus. What difference does that make? What difference does it make how many students are waiting at the bus stop? Does it really matter? I don't think so. If you let Sheetz build, then you're not concerned for the safety and welfare of our children on Montclair. Students from CCAC walking to Sheetz might cross Route 19, where there's no traffic light, and walk across the other side where there are no sidewalks, from CCAC to Prescott Drive, and from SSB Bank to A Comfort. If a child gets injured or killed, it will reflect on you and our community. Let's not forget, Sheetz will be actually selling beer in our neighborhood. Now we have to worry more so when children get on and off the bus and patrons are drinking beer and may be intoxicated. It only takes 1 second for a child to be abducted. How many CCA students will be purchasing beer in between classes? As has happened in the past, kids would drink beer on the dirt road at the end of Montclair. On mornings while walking down the dirt road, I had to pick up empty beer cans and broken bottles. The sale of alcohol will cause an increase in police surveillance and cleanup by the township, causing undue costs, not to mention an empty and unguarded Sheetz for invitation. Increased cars in our neighborhood. Motorists missing the Sheetz entrance on Montclair would drive down Montclair, which is a dead-end street, endangering residents, children, and our grandchildren playing ball and riding their bikes on Montclair. We will not allow an entrance on Montclair to Sheetz. It would cause property damage, as has occurred in the past. Motorists turn around my driveway and our neighbors' driveways, hitting my split-rail fence and take off. Every time a car hits my fence or my neighbor's mailbox, who do we submit the bill to? Why do I have to worry that my insurance company will increase my homeowner's insurance? Sheetz recognizes there is a drug problem. A Sheetz gas station convenience store in New Kensington, Pennsylvania, has installed blue lights in its bathrooms, hoping to curb illegal drug use. It was on the news this afternoon on WTAE. The blue light system makes it so that somebody who is looking to inject heroin or an opioid can't find their veins. Sheetz spokesman Nick Ruffner told the Valley News Dispatch. The company said they're trying the lighting strategy in the single location as a kind of pilot test. But the blue lights probably won't stop most people from trying to do drugs. Researchers who have interviewed drug users say most will still try to shoot up in a blue lit bathroom. It's just more dangerous. So this is another problem we'll have to deal with, drug use in our neighborhood. For the love of me, I don't understand why Sheetz and or the builder can't build on the vacant property available across the street from Sheetz. I'm sure money is no object for Sheetz. The neighbors would be happy and McCandless still get their tax dollars. We wouldn't have to worry about the children waiting for the school bus. It's a win-win situation. Let's put it this way. If you lived on Montclair, would you be in favor of Sheetz moving into your neighborhood, selling beer, and your children waiting for the school bus while cars are flying in and out of Montclair?
I'm sorry, Ms.
I
Rupp.
guarantee your answer would be no.
Thank you for your comments. Another citizen?
Hi, my name's Virginia Novak. I live at 130 Montclair Avenue. I'm on here on behalf of myself, my mother, my sister, and my niece that all live at 130. We would be directly across from the new Sheetz. We live at the top of the hill. My mother bought our house in this quiet residential neighborhood in a good school district when we were children. We were very small. We lived there for 18 years. I now live there with, like I said, my mother, my sister, and my 2-year-old niece. We have absolutely no interest in living directly across the street from a mega Sheetz. Having this gas station that is open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, will tremendously decrease our property values. No one wants to live across the street looking right at a dumpster. How do you expect us to sell our homes in the future? Who would want to live here? Would you want that view right outside your window because it'd be directly in front of our house? I grew up there, and as Mr. Hamilton pointed out, it was already dangerous enough catching the school bus when I was little, and with the new traffic flow and all of that stuff, it'd just make it 10 times worse. And it doesn't matter how many kids are getting on the bus. Every kid's just as important as the next. Anyway, and also a lot of really good memories. Growing up on that street, it was quiet, it was safe. My friends wanted to sleep over. And I want to raise my children and be able to bring them to my grandmother's house in the future, knowing that they're safe. If you do a Google search on Zillow or Realtor.com, there is countless articles and threads all stating that gas stations lower your property value. I passed out an article to you that states a gas station lowers your property value more than a funeral home, cemetery, strip club, city dump, or even a bad school district. We bought our homes for the neighborhood with light commercial use. This is a high-traffic commercial use that doesn't belong in a residential commercial district. Cool Cones has an ordinance that states that it cannot be open past 11, as somebody else pointed out, because it is in a residential commercial district. How are you allowing this 24-hour use in the same district? Are you going to change the ordinances for all the other businesses in our district? Our home will lose a lot of value because potential buyers will be able to easily observe the traffic and nuisance, and will also be concerned with the health and environmental effects of the gas station. The traffic and decreased air quality from the constant flow of vehicles in and out of there all day and all night, the light pollution from the store itself, and all of the vehicles in and out of there would be a nightmare. There are alternate sites that this could be built. There's no reason to bring this to a peaceful, quiet residential street that so many people love. A study was done And they found that there were increased levels of airborne chemicals within 150 feet of a gas station due to the evaporation of gasoline during the filling process. They also discovered that the greater number of pumps and the greater area of contamination extending from the gas station, benzene is the most harmful of these chemicals. It is a carcinogen and has been known to cause brain damage, leukemia, affect the central nervous system, respiratory tract, and immune system problems. Toluene is another chemical associated with gas vapors. It has been known to cause liver and kidney failure, irregular rhythms of the heart. Between all these factors, there would be a drop in property values of every house on the street. The residents of this neighborhood do not deserve to have these burdens imposed on them and will not quietly stand aside while the residential community is destroyed. If you allow this monstrosity to be built, how are you planning to compensate the homeowners for their decrease in property value? Will we receive a decrease in our tax assessment, cash settlement? All of these questions need and deserve to be answered. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Novak. Is there another citizen that has a point to be made?
Yes, my name is Cloy Moser. I live at 9643 Hilliard Road. And the reason I'm here is to make a presentation for the longtime residents. I first became a resident of McCandless Township September 15th, 1960. So I have a history here. I'm also, besides a property owner and taxpayer, I'm the trustee for an additional property here in McCandless. Part of the reason people move to McCandless is because we don't want to be a Ross Township with McKnight Road. We don't want to be a Monroeville with a Miracle Mile. This is a place to live without over-exploitation of the longtime residents, which apparently many of these people live in a house that their parents bought probably back around the same time. So I think that needs to be considered as far as do we need more retail? More retail is going to increase your need for police. The police, I believe, here are already overtaxed, and emergency services and all those things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moser.
Hi, my name is Jason Moots. I'm a resident at 160 Montclair Avenue. I've been a real estate professional for 19 years. I'm here today to talk to you about consequences and blight that this decision to change the law would occur. Consequences. We deal with these in our everyday life, but unless we have all the facts, these could be real issues later in life. I believe at the April meeting, both a representative of the council and the Sheets Corporation called our neighborhood homely. Are you aware, in the left pocket of your packet I gave you, that in the last year, 21 homes sold in our neighborhood? The average price was $245,000, $77,000 over the average Pittsburgh home price. The average time on market was 34 days. And the last home to sell was on Montclair Avenue for $269, and it sold in 4 days. I'm not sure. I've only been a realtor for 19 years, but I don't think this sounds like a homely neighborhood to me. If you put the sheets in, that's what you're going to get. We as residents realize that the commercial strip at Perry Highway does need some attention, and we are open to redevelopment, but we want it done right, not with the sheets. We can see why the council would want to allow sheets to go in, because it's kind of the golden goose that fell in your lap. You get the tax revenue, you get renovation of the 3 commercial properties with minimal effort. However, there's some vital info that the developer and Sheets withheld from you that the council needs to hear. Once you realize what I'm about to tell you, you'll see it's really a lame duck and not a golden goose. Are you aware that changes to the current RC zoning district codes will allow Sheets to open there with 30 homes that will be ineligible to have FHA mortgage financing on them? The FHA, which I gave you their codes on the left side of the packet, their appraisal ordinances, if there is tanks that hold over 1,000 gallons of explosive fuel within 300 feet of an adjoining property, the FHA loan will be denied. take into account 1 out of 4 people, or 25% of current home buyers out there, use an FHA mortgage. This means they would not be able to buy my house. In addition to that, Fannie Mae guidelines, which I also gave you, state that it's at the appraiser's discretion to determine what is a hazardous neighbor. It does not give a length of feet away from it. 65% of the current home buyers use a Fannie Mae-backed mortgage. What could occur is we know 25% of the people out there shopping for a home will not be able to buy my home, and it could go up to 90% once you figure in the Fannie Mae guidelines. How can Sheets argue that this would not decrease my home value if 90% of home buyers could not buy my home? Surely you must agree, or remember how I spoke earlier about consequences? That home that last sold on Montclair Avenue, number 205, for $169 in 4 days, it was sold using an FHA mortgage. That home would not have been allowed to sell today if the Sheets existed at the top of the hill. The PA Commonwealth law requires us as homeowners to fill out a seller's disclosure statement. I provided you with one of them in your packet, as well as a map of the adjoining parcels that would be affected by this. We as homeowners would have to disclose that you would not be able to have financing on your home through FHA or conventional means in that disclosure. I also want to note that 11 of those homes affected, by my calculation, are located on Casa Grande and also on East Fairview. Neighbors on these streets were not notified of this meeting tonight by the township or the developer. How could we make a decision for them without them even being here? Sheets is basically trying to pull the wool over your eyes as well as us as homeowners. These decreases in value cannot be accepted. How will residents be compensated for our loss of value? Are you willing to lower our tax rates? If there are 30 homeowner lawsuits against Sheets or the township, how can you defend yourselves when you know that these appraisal issues exist? It isn't just the residents of Montclair. We had a petition signed online with 244 people supporting us, as well as 8 hard copies. I gave you a link to our website. I'm also going to give you the 8 hard copies.
I'm sorry your time's up. Thank you for your comments, Mr. Mott.
Oh, that's all right. I have only 5 minutes. My name is Jonathan Bernstein. My address is 8693 Highland Road. I live on the other side of the road where the Sheets actually is at this point, and I live relatively close to that Sheets. So I am actually asking for the council to approve the text change language, ultimately because I feel like Sheets has been and is a good neighbor. My family and I moved into this town about 5 years ago. We appreciate having the Sheets there. We go there frequently, as I'm sure most of the other residents in this neighborhood do as well. I feel like they've been responsible, at least to this point, with how they manage things on their current property. Are there going to be issues in regards to traffic no matter where Sheets goes? Of course there is. But that's just like any other property or company where you have in and out on a constant basis. So ultimately, from my family experience, from myself personally, living as close as I do to the Sheets, we have never, my kiddos play out in the yard. I have an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old, and we have never smelled gas. We've never had an issue with any sort of noise that has kept us up in the middle of the night with the diesel trucks coming in or fueling trucks during the day. We live on a higher traffic area. My kiddos also go to school at NA, and they also have a bus stop, and people fly up and down the road. But guess what? The school is pretty good about that, and there are times that I go out there, or my wife goes out there and stands with them at the bus stop to make sure that they're safe. So I would just like to say that I can respect other people's concerns, but I feel like a text change and allowing them to put the property in across the street would be a valuable asset to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bernstein. No. Is there another citizen who'd like to speak? Go ahead.
Hello, and thank you for listening to us tonight. My name is Pete Menard, and my wife and I, we are the owners of the existing Sheets property. And so I'm not going to, the good residents here have done a very good case about the dangers, if you will, that they feel it'll be for safety and other concerns. But what I'm here to talk about is what's going to happen to the current property and what will the consequences of of this voting entail. As you may know or may not know, public record shows that our property, the current Sheets site, sold gasoline long before Sheets came on the scene in 1983. And that property has a value that is composed primarily on the value of the land itself, but there's something else there. And it's what I call the exclusivity clause. And what I mean by that is, yes, gasoline sales are prohibited within 1,500 feet. But what that does, if it's taken away, the new zoning changes is going to hurt the value of my property. And I am concerned about what is going to happen to our property if indeed this new Sheets goes across the street. Basically, what could happen is it'll hurt our property values. It may open up the township to charges of what I call spot zoning. I won't go into the definition of that, but basically that's something that could be litigated in the future. And if any of the existing curb cuts or other changes are done to the current property, or some future zoning board decides, we don't want that to be a gas station anymore, even though it's been a gas station since the 1940s, there's a financial responsibility there. And, these lost property values are costs that we, as property owners, would have to try and recoup. Where? From the township. Loss of use litigation, when property is taken and is not allowed to be used for something that's been done for many years, it can be a very costly in legal fees and punitive damages. And so basically, in summation, I am saying and asking the council, let's not be short-sighted. Realize there may be consequences to your actions here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bernard.
Hello, my name is Terry Wilcox, and I live at 8751 Prescott Drive. So while I'm not on the busy street impacted directly by the Sheets location, right now, currently, my husband is a nurse that works 7 at night till 7 in the morning. I'm a Cheesecake Factory manager, so I typically get home, especially on the weekend, at 2 or 3 in the morning, and when we're off, we're still up at that time. So our nice, quiet neighborhood that we chose 15 years ago to move into is somewhere that we go out together, walk our dog, sometimes go over to the Sheets. It's a nice enough place. You can tie your dog to the park bench and go inside and get a cold drink and come outside and enjoy the neighborhood. I will tell you, as an expert of the late night traffic and activity in the area, that Sheets has been a good neighbor as far as a late night store goes of that size. But literally every single weekend after the bars are closed, there's 10 to 15 young people in there doing things that young people do, exploding potato chips and goofing around, and that was before there was alcohol sales. Now the Sheets they're proposing is going to be a parking space for 30 and seating for 30 in their dining room. Currently there is no seating, and everybody knows probably 5 parking spaces that are regularly used, and that will change the environment of how many people come and gather there. And I don't feel that it'll be a place that I can go and walk my dog with my husband in a quiet night. And you can hear from my house when I open my windows, either in the fall or in the summertime or the spring, the noise of people going to the Sheets. And it's not as much right now, but changing to the size that they want of the Sheets would completely change my neighborhood and how I feel I can enjoy the time of night that I'm there, also making it feel somewhere that's not as safe as it is now, because it does feel like we all know each other as neighbors. We all know every single other dog's name there. The other piece that I would like to address is the part of the ordinance that says as one gentleman pointed out, that it will further the health, safety, and welfare of the residents to encourage the clustering of service stations. And the problem that nobody has directed is in Cranberry, where a Super Sheets went in, their current Sheets that is left, as the landlord was also wondering about, is vacant, and they haven't been a good tenant of that spot. There's virtually tumbleweeds going through it, retaining walls falling down, and in disrepair. Nobody wants to come in and make a small gas station next to a Super Sheets. So as a blight in our community, sitting empty, and especially it's evolved in a lawsuit because of not being sure if they're going to change use of the property, makes it be so that if the Super Sheets went in and that triangle that faces all of us were vacant and not taken care of because the sheets would be empty, would not make it something that would improve the value of our property. So my wish is that the way that the Sheets is would stay where it currently is and not change the tenor of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilcox.
Good evening, Madam President, members of council all. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. I'll be extremely brief. I'd like to applaud those members of the community who have done such good homework relative to their issues. As you can tell, the issues are many and varied, and the concerns are many are quite valid. However, just as a brief history lesson, as some of you know, I was a member of the law enforcement of this town for over 35 years. And as such, I traveled that area thousands of times.
Excuse me, sir, before we continue, and a lot of people on this dais do know who you are, but could you, for the record, state your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry, Ralph Ladon, Peoples Road, Ward 6.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
At any rate, to continue with the history lesson, I too am well aware of the traffic conditions up there. If, in fact, the developer plans those improvements, I think that would certainly be an improvement on the conditions that currently exist. I am aware that there's a school bus stop. Chief DeSanti is too, and I'm sure he would take the proper measures to see that that area is well patrolled by the police department. But again, speaking of 35 years ago, I stood right here at this very point and gave a traffic study that the department and I had conducted regarding the development of what is now McIntyre Square. And as we all know, the McIntyre Square is a considerably larger development, about 15 to 20 times larger than the proposed one, and everyone in not only Peebles Road, but in all of Longview Acres Plans 1, 2, and 3, and Windmill Acres, part of Graybrook, Briarwood, were concerned about their property values. And with all due respect to my fellow real estate agent, I was a real estate agent myself for 21 years during that period of time. And I was, a lot of people were concerned about the impact of that size of, or that development on the value and resale value of their properties. Well, I made it a point to take it upon myself to do a study of how properties values changed after that project was completed. And as a matter of fact, if you check the multi-list records for the period of the early to late 1980s, the values of the properties in Longview 1, 2, and 3, Windmill, Briarwood, Graybrook, they all escalated. All those properties went up in value. Now, if they are reduced in value by this kind of a project, I don't know, but I can say that for the size of McIntyre Square, that project did not reduce the value of the properties that were concerned about that issue. I'd like to thank council for their hard work. I know they deliberate long and hard. I'd like to thank town administration because I know Bruce and his cadre of experts and technicians will assure that the proper buffers.
Excuse me, Mr. Ladon. Please show respect to the speaker. He respected you. Thank you. Continue.
Thank you, Madam President. And the staff here will make sure that the proper buffers and everything that's in the ordinance will be followed relative to noise pollution, light pollution, and every other measure that can be controlled. But I believe council should look favorably on this type of a project because I feel that the benefits will override the detriments. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Ladon. If there's no further public comment, we'll allow a short. Oh, there's one? I'm sorry. Okay, all right, one more? No, when public, the way this will work is the public gives all their comments, then there will be a very short summary by sheets, and then the public hearing will be closed.
I am a resident, John Scrippa, live on 8705 Harmony Parkway. Moved out in the neighborhood just a street down on Terrace Drive in 1970. When I first moved here, I was talking about the gas stations. Munson Service Station was there in the present Sheets location. And there was a small store that had just closed its pumps, Blosker's small store right at the top of Gloria Street. It's occupied by a different place now. So they had two gas stations there for some amount of time that I recall. I don't know when it became inactive. It was an old gas station, certainly within 1,500 feet. So I'm just curious about that, if anybody checked that out from probably in the 60s and 70s. And then for a while, I thought that Munson's, when it closed, and Ed Zinzer opened his body shop, they weren't running the pumps there. So I could be mistaken. I'm not sure, but someone checks that out. So then the Sheets comes in. It's been a good neighbor. Everybody that's in this room has most likely been to Sheets at one point or another, or lived by it. I actually look for Sheets if I'm out and about, if I need a snack or gas or something. They seem to be good tenants, reliability. I am frustrated by the light. If I go to Superior Pools, if I stop in at A Comfort, I try to get across the street there just to go back to Old Perry. It's ridiculous. I don't know what to do. So I do see that there's something wrong with that may be aided by a Sheets going in. I also feel that all the Sheets I've seen, they seem responsible. Same with Mr. Ladon as far as taking the steps to do the appropriate measures to assure. And I'm sure I would feel a little different, don't misunderstand, if I lived on that exact street. So hopefully NA can figure out the bus stop and all the other concerns that the residents have, and if everything is appropriate and by the book, so to speak, and everything is good, then it should at least be open-mindedly considered. But again, I would probably feel a little different if I lived on that street. But for years now, we've been talking about things. Pizza Roma has expanded. They sell liquor. The liquor store moved when it moved. There's beer distributors around. There's everything around everywhere. Kids are doing drugs up in NA bathrooms, most likely. So, I mean, they did when I went to school there. So I don't know what's going to stop or start anything. Everybody's going to be what they do, and hopefully their parents can control the behavior of the children. And I do see some of the concerns, but at least let this thing go to fruition and figure out what's going on and make sure that hold Sheets to the line and make sure they do everything they're supposed to do. But don't stop prior. What the heck with McCandless Crossing? My goodness. I never thought there'd be anything there, and now you look at it, and I don't know how that doesn't affect some of the adjacent plants more so. So hopefully they do the right concerns and satisfy the neighbors and the residents' concerns and do an appropriate job. But I think it should be looked at favorably until proven otherwise. So
Thank you, Mr. Scripple, for your comment.
Did you sign up, John?
I did.
You did?
Yes.
Okay, could you spell your name just for the record?
Yes, I know how. Oh, you want me to spell it for you? Yes.
Thank you, John.
I thought it was a test.
You passed.
S-K-A-R-U-P-A.
S-K-A.
Thank you. Don't give out my phone number now, Toby.
No, I do need your address, please.
As I stated, for the record, 8705 Harmony Parkway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
one more, no, he's the summary.
My name is Todd Rule, and I own the adjacent business to the new proposed site at 8600 Perry Highway. And I'm a longtime, although currently living in Franklin Park, I grew up in Breezewood, and my whole life has been in this community. In 1993, my wife and I purchased our building. It was previously called the Daisy Stitchery. It was in a state of disrepair, similar to the two homes that are on the adjacent street at Montclair. And we put a lot of time and effort into that in bringing it up to a standard acceptable to the community and to myself. My grandparents grew up on Glen Manor and Rawls House Road, and I was married in North Monterey. I do understand the concerns of all the people that are involved with Montclair. But the current buildings are all in a state of disrepair. They are not viable entities. They're houses that have been converted into businesses, similar to our own. But they warrant no further investment, and you couldn't justify investing in them to garner the rent that you would get out of them in their current state. I took a ride down from Ross Township, and I went back and double-checked my numbers. And before I come up with these statistics, I did not count any vacancies. So there are a few vacancies, such as in the Perrymont building, buildings that have tenant space but not rented out. There are 64 businesses from Ross Township to Prescott. One church, 2 live-in businesses, which was the concept of the RC zone, which never came to fruition. 5 homes, 4 serviced by an adjacent road off of West Sandal. Previously, they made some comments about invitation to a introductory meeting. There was an invitation, and the people did attend from Montclair, and I believe it was an advertised meeting. It was at the library, where the concept of this was discussed with the community. The concept of the RC zone has totally been forgotten about. It was to turn into a Perrysville environment, and it never came to fruition. The new Sheets is going to be built to a higher environmental standard than the current Sheets, and it's likely that if there is a leak at the news station, it will be picked up a lot sooner than at the current. And knowing a little bit about plumbing, because that's the business we're in, it's very likely that the water table is the same with a business that's only 100 feet away from the new proposed site. So, and the likelihood of a leak over at the old station is probably higher than at the new. Currently, it's directly across from a daycare center that loads about 24 kids a day on and off to go to the school district, to our current school district and school districts beyond ours. A lot of times people wonder why I would even be involved with this. It's going to cause a lot more consternation and traffic where our location is. We have wanted to move from McCandless Township for some time, simply because when we purchase things, we pay 1% more here than we would if we were in a place above Butler County. So we had actually purchased a piece of property, and because this deal was reinvigorated and the concept of it was changed, we decided to stay. We also pay a higher tax rate in McCandless Township, not to residents, by the way. Residents pay the second lowest in all of Allegheny County. And one of the reasons why they pay that is because there's a little known tax other than to business owners, and that's called a gross receipts tax. That helps hold down the taxes that the general population has to pay. Comments were made about the commercial viability of the property known as 131 Montclair. 60% of that property has been used for the last 25 years as commercial property. The whole back half of it is excess parking, storage for Superior Pools. We talked about businesses being open late. Currently, Pizza Roma is open till 2 a.m.
Mr. Rowe, I'm sorry.
I'm done.
Perfect. Thank you for your comments. All right, we'll have the Sheets representative have a short closing statement.
If I may, I do not represent Sheets.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I know that's okay. I
You were
represent.
kind of sitting there with them.
I represent Michael Gronsky.
Okay.
And if I may, I'd like to distribute a few exhibits.
Oh, I said I would and I didn't do it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there should be an extra.
By representing, you mean you're his attorney?
I am. I'm an attorney representing Michael and Susan Gronsky. The Gronskys reside at 136 Montclair Avenue, near the intersection with Perry Highway.
And your name, please.
Steve Gibbs. As an initial matter, these proceedings fail to comply with the procedural requirements of 1351.04, which you can find at the back of that packet. 1351.04 sets forth the procedure for rezoning of property. In particular, 1351.04 states that a request to rezone is defined, is defined to change the zoning map and to amend the zoning code, both of which Sheets' proposed amendment would do. In such circumstances, the applicant, in this case Sheets, is required to submit a location plan, a plot plan, and a concept plan in conjunction with the rezoning request. If such plans have been submitted, they certainly have not been distributed to residents or shared with residents in any way. I find it remarkable that tonight Sheets continues not to provide information, and in fact the burden is on the residents to respond and object without the benefit of any information before them. And then Sheets will be provided with an opportunity to rebut those objections. And in fact, that's the only burden on Sheets, despite the fact that it's the party seeking an amendment here tonight. I understand the argument that collateral issues such as citing are not before the council. That argument neglects the fact that the proposed amendment itself incorporates recitals that include a statement, which was discussed earlier, that the town council finds that it will further the health, safety, and welfare of the residents and visitors to the town of McCandless, to remove certain distance restrictions for service stations in the town, to encourage the clustering of service stations at signalized intersections, which will improve traffic safety. This very factual statement is expressly incorporated into the draft amendment, and yet no information has been provided to the residents that would allow them to evaluate whether that statement is in fact correct. To be clear, Sheets has placed that factual assertion at issue tonight, and therefore the residents should be afforded an opportunity to evaluate it. What we are discussing here is a residential commercial district. It's a unique district. It's the only district zoned residential commercial in McCandless. The purpose behind the RC district is carefully set forth in the ordinances. There's a sharp contrast between the purpose section for the RC district and that of the commercial districts. If you look at second to last page of your packet, it's the purpose statement for the C3 district. It's 2 sentences long. It essentially says that it's there to allow a wide variety of commercial uses. If you turn one page before that, actually to the second page of your packet. It's the purpose statement for the RC district.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Solicitor, your time's up. Thank you for your comment.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Victor from Victor Wetzel Associates. I've been asked by Mr. Gronsky to provide expert testimony in regards to the land use planning associated with the amendment to the ordinance.
Mr. Victor, you're not a licensed attorney, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, and this is for residents and taxpayers. Attorneys can't speak on behalf of taxpayers when retained, but this is not a type of conditional use hearing where there's evidence presented, expert testimony presented, so you're not going to be able to speak.
Is that the case?
This is our solicitor, I have to,
All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Respectfully, we were informed that there'd been no issues with Mr. Victor speaking tonight, and frankly, Sheets is going to have testimony from representatives who presumably also aren't attorneys.
Were representations made to these folks that Mr. Victor would be able to testify?
Mr. Victor would be able to speak.
Okay. I apologize, Mr. Victor. Take the floor.
All right. Thank you. Again, I was asked to give expert testimony regarding this. I have spent the last 40 years dealing as a registered landscape architect and also as a land planner. And I've actually done consulting for the town and have been before you many times for land development. What I'd like to share with you is my perspective on the ordinance as it's shown, and that the burden of proof really should be stronger on behalf of the applicant. The Route 19 corridor, as it runs through McCandless, is primarily highway commercial, and you've zoned the northern 2/3 of the town C3. And as Mr. Gibbs pointed out, the purpose of the C3 district is 2 sentences long. The bottom portion of the town has the RC district, and it's very important, and I won't go through and read it to you, but in your handout there you have the purpose statement. It's 3 paragraphs long. The key words, in my opinion, looking at it as a planner, is the recognition that it is a combined commercial and residential district, and that the key word, it must be harmonious between the activities of the commercial versus the residential. I think you should use that word as the basis by which to judge whether this activity, not so much as Sheets, because indirectly it's for Sheets, but what we have here is a change of the ordinance that will be available to any and all gas stations who would like to be in the RC district. Is it harmonious to have multiple gas stations at a signalized intersection? I would say that it is not the intent of the ordinance, because your code specifically says if there are to be gas stations within the RC district, there is to be a 1,500-foot separation between them. The RC district is over 6,000 feet long. There are multiple areas. You can do the math. There's the potential for 4 different locations along that area in which you could separate out those types of activities. I think I'd point out, as Mr. Gibbs stated also, it is my opinion, and I have been involved with rezonings in the past in the town, that it is the obligation of the applicant to submit as part of a rezoning under that section that says you must submit a concept plan. Again, how can you judge whether something is harmonious or not without contemplating the physical characteristics of the scale and the buffering, the lighting, the colors, et cetera, that go into play as part of this. I think you're only looking at a portion of it when you're looking simply at the text change from 1 to 2 as the number of service vehicles, and instead you ought to be looking at it as the total aggregate, as combination of the site plan and the test of whether this second gas station will be harmonious to the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Victor.
I just want to make sure in public, no more commentary from the public. Okay. So as I indicated, we do have 2 individuals that will speak, but I feel like I have to briefly respond just with respect to.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
There will be only one individual. It can be you or whoever to just kind of summarize or have a closing statement to the public hearing.
Okay, I had indicated I had 2. I thought at that point that was acceptable to the council.
I think one is okay.
All right, well then I will pass this off to our land use expert.
Okay.
Good evening, thank you. It's a pleasure to be at a civil public hearing these days. Doesn't happen often. I'm going to limit my talk to a discussion of the spacing requirement that is the subject of the hearing. I'm Joseph Sabino Mystic. I'm here on behalf of Sheets. I have a long history with the spacing requirement. It is one of the menu of devices that I've taught at Duquesne Law School over the last 30 years. I have drafted. I'll beat it anyways. Okay.
Start all over again, Joe.
Okay. Joseph Sabino Mystic, an attorney for Sheets. I'm here to discuss the spacing requirement exclusively, which is the subject of this public hearing. It is one of the devices on a menu of devices that I've taught over the last 30 years at Duquesne Law School. And I have drafted a number of these spacing requirements as chairman of the Pittsburgh Zoning Board, vice chairman of the Planning Commission, chief of staff to the mayor, and in private practice. So I'm familiar with these. They've been around since the early days of zoning, which dates to 1926 in the United States. And in those days, there were certain uses about which there was some uncertainty, and the thought was if you spaced them, you could sort of spread the uncertainty throughout the community and wait to see how that worked out. Now, modern usage uses these spacing requirements for institutional facilities, for social service facilities, group homes, personal care boarding homes, even halfway houses. And those are thought that in concentration they would have a deleterious effect on the community. Business uses, oddly, these days, as apart from when these devices were first used, are clustered instead of spaced. And planners look for nodes of activity. The central space strategy, it's what creates town squares and neighborhood business centers, things of that sort. One good reason not to space businesses is that it creates a monopoly. It's anti-competitive. It favors one property owner over others. And if there is an issue involving spot zoning, it's usually created by a spacing requirement that isolates one piece of property and allows it to be used for something that none of the abutting properties can be used for. The good news is that when you cluster these kinds of uses, there's a sharing of the infrastructure costs, and that inures to the benefit of all the properties that touch this site, and to all the people who travel through this intersection. Now, interestingly, your comprehensive plan, which was submitted in May of 2005, talks about this district. And it says that the town has been in continuous communication with PennDOT in planning for the development of a successful upgrade of this section of highway. It is important to provide for left turns and U-turns and to make provision for pedestrian traffic. And with the elimination of this spacing requirement, I submit that those are the kinds of improvements that we will see if indeed we are ultimately approved. I realize this is a tough decision. I've been an elected member of council and it's more often I've been seated with the citizens, I should add, at meetings like this, trying to express their legitimate concerns. It's difficult to balance the legitimate concerns of your constituents with the general welfare of the community. But I think this is one of those circumstances in which that balance can be achieved. And I do believe, given the chance, and it is the repeal of this spacing requirement that will provide that chance, that Sheets will step up and be a good neighbor, because being a good neighbor is good business. And they will do all that is asked of them in order to address the concerns of the citizens. And if that is not sufficient, they realize they will be bound by the reasonable conditions placed upon them by this council. So I urge you to eliminate this anti-competitive spacing requirement, to try to get closer to what planners might call best practices in terms of clustering business uses as opposed to spreading them out and creating a need for unnecessary infrastructure costs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Mr. Mertz?
I move,
Need a second?
Will you second? There's been a motion.
I second the motion.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor of closing the public hearing, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Public hearing is closed. The council will take a 5-minute recess.
Skipping the new business. Going back in.
So, excuse me, we're reconvening. Thank you. Now we will do the reports of the committees. We'll begin with Finance and Personnel.
Madam Chairman, I move to ratify checklisting number 6 dated May 11th, 2018 through June the 6th, 2018, totaling $872,676.86 as submitted to each member of council and posted on the bulletin board and town website.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any questions from anyone on council involving the list of bills? Is there any comments from any citizen concerning the bills? Hearing none, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor of ratifying the checklist number 6 indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
I move to adopt resolution number 12 of the 2018 series, a resolution amending the town's existing master fee resolution governing various town fees and charges.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to adopt the resolution number 12. Are there any questions or comments from council? Is it my understanding that this is only an increase in escrow accounts, but is not any additional fees to be put on the citizens?
Correct.
Okay. All right, and of course escrows are money that not used or given back to the individual. Any questions? Any comments from citizens concerning this motion? From time to time, we just revisit the fees and make sure that they're appropriate. Okay, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting resolution number 12 indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
I move to accept the resignation letter received from Michael Zinnak as a member of the Environmental Advisory Committee effective June 1st, 2018. This resignation is because Mr. Zinnak is moving to Florida.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to accept this letter of resignation. We're very sorry to be losing Mike. He was an outstanding member of the EAC, and all those little tips that you see everywhere in the town, he was the person behind those. So we do appreciate him, and we're sorry to be losing him to Florida. Any comments from anyone on council or questions about this? Anyone from the town? We've had a motion and a second. All those in favor of accepting resignation indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move to adopt resolution number 13 of the 2018 series, a resolution amending resolution number 23 of 2016 by naming current signatories authorized to sign documents relative to the town of McCandless defined benefit pension plans.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 13, authorizing signatures. Are there any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, any comments from any citizens? Okay, there's been a motion and a second to indicate the current signatures, authorization to sign documents. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I move to authorize the creation of the position of junior council member and the town manager to prepare the duties, protocols, and selection procedures for this position.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second, creating a position of a junior council member for the town of McCandless. Any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, any questions or comments from citizens? This is an exciting new idea that was brought to us by an NA student, and we're looking forward to seeing how it works out. Having a motion and a second, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
That concludes the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you. Zoning Committee.
Move to adopt ordinance number 1476, an ordinance to consider a zoning code amendment from C-Vest Health Properties LLC to allow a small format hospital as permitted use within McKnight Road D Development Zoning District and the Institutional Zoning District.
I second the motion.
I will be abstaining from this vote due to a possible conflict of interest. We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments from council? Hearing none, any questions or comments from citizens?
Good evening. My name is Dusty Elias Kirk, and I am here on behalf of C-Vest Properties. I wanted to let you know that we have today signed an agreement for resource protection. We heard your community, and we've talked to Mr. Betty significantly about resource protection in this location. So we have signed that agreement, and we will be sending it in to you all after it's redacted, so price and things aren't in there to keep privacy for the individuals. But they are planning to purchase, it's actually 10 acres for resource protection purposes. Thank you.
Any other comments? Please come to the microphone.
Good evening, Madam President, Council in good standing. My name is Mark Donatelli. I live up on Griffin. What I want to talk tonight about is the new hospital they're building here. Okay, and again, I've been trying to stress this. It would be really nice if this new hospital would go green. And it'd be to their benefit and the patient's benefit if this hospital was built right. Okay, like the Vincentian, they're going to be doing something really nice here, and I feel that this new hospital they're building, they should do it the same way on that order. I'm not against it because it looks like the North Hills is probably going to be number one in medical, maybe throughout the whole world, because we have a lot of people from out of state coming to visit us here, and it would be nice if we had a nice hospital like that. if they're all willing to go along with it. Also, they might be getting a 30% tax credit if they go green on the hospitals. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Fontelle. I'm sure council will take that into consideration. Any other comments? Hearing none, there has been a motion and a second to adopt ordinance number 1473. All those in...
76.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry, 76. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, with one abstention. Okay, motion passes.
Move to approve the land development application of North Allegheny School District to replace the turf and install lighting on the athletic field adjacent to North Allegheny Intermediate High School located at 350 Cumberland Road as per project number 218-011, sheets 1 through 12, prepared by Common Ground, dated May 7th, 2018, with the condition that all lights be turned off by 10 p.m.
I second the motion.
There has been a motion and a second to approve the land development application for North Allegheny. Are there questions or comments by council?
Is everyone notified across the street like we'd asked about the 85-foot lighting?
A request was made. If there's someone here who can speak to that.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I'm Rob Gartner, Director of Facilities, North Allegheny School District. Last week, we sent notification to all the residents that live across Cumberland Road from the campus, from Cromwell, I believe, Drive, which is up by the McKnight Elementary School entrance, all the way up to the property that's adjacent to St. John's Lutheran. Is it St. John's? The church at the top.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Okay. So that whole group of residents along Cumberland Road were notified by mail last week.
I also noticed that the Planning Commission had said that there would be some core borings that were required. Do you know if you have some results from those?
Yes, we do, and we forward them on to the town's engineer.
Okay, all right, perfect.
Madam Chair, I requested if they could provide us with some type of a cut sheet of the light or some type of information, further information on the lighting for this week.
We did provide Mr. Betty the information on the lighting. They are LED light fixtures. They are very accurately aimed by the manufacturer, and then we check them after they're up, of course, to make sure they're properly aimed. So.
These are the spec sheets as well as the pictures of the lights. When this was presented to us, we looked not only, we looked at specifically at the photometrics of the lights and more than at the cut sheets, because we wanted to be certain that it met the town code. And the town code is that they have to be no more than a half a foot candle within 15 feet of a residential property. This is 2.2 foot candles before you even get to the end of the school district property. So they more than exceed the, more than meet the town requirements for lighting. So, but these are the style of lights they are. They're different, they're very specific for this purpose, and very focused. And very adjustable.
So if they do shine out, I think what people are concerned about is not so much the shining out, but just the light from them, even though they're directed down. So are there shields, or is there some way to adjust them if they get in and the residents are like, oh, this is too much?
Again, I'm not sure if we're talking about light levels or glow. I can see lows from my house, but that doesn't mean that the light levels are above the town ordinances. So I'm not sure what you're asking me, Ms. Zachary, but I mean, they are focused and they are aimable. They don't necessarily have shields on them because they are not spilling over. Usually the shields are used when you have a light level that's exceeding or approaching the ordinance as far as the edge of it. In this case, we don't have that condition happening. So I can't speak to whether these can be provided with shields. I don't believe they are, but I don't know that they can be either.
I was just thinking once they got
I,
in.
I understand.
If there was a
I'm
problem
not,
we didn't think of,
I understand.
You know.
Does anyone have any questions? Did that answer your question sufficient?
Madam Chair, yeah, just to clarify, Mr. Gardner, the concern would be hotspot glare, specifically in residents, and I think that's what we're talking about when we're talking about shielding. I think we addressed the glow through the 10-hour curfew, the 10 p.m. curfew, but I think we're talking about adjustability or shielding if there is hotspot glare to residents across the road. That's what we're talking about, for clarity.
I don't know until they're in, so I can't tell you what the adjustment capabilities or the shields that can be provided. I don't have that information readily available. I do know that there are only 2 fixtures that are pointed towards Cumberland Road, and they are at the far end of the site, so they are several hundred feet away from any of those properties. So I again, until they're in, I can't answer that question, of course, but I know that only 2 fixtures are pointed that direction. Everything else is pointed away from the houses.
I mean, actually, it's the 2 that are pointed, that are at the base of the hill that comes down Carson.
Yes, sir.
And that's actually over 500 yards from Cumberland.
Okay, I didn't do it.
I paced it off.
Okay.
No, I did.
I appreciate that. Like I said, I didn't scale that necessarily before I came here tonight.
Madam Chair, as long as I'm sensing there's a willingness to work with the town and the residents if a problem, an unforeseen problem develops, and if I...
We would always, we've worked with the town on many other issues. I don't imagine why we wouldn't deal with this one the same way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Our land use administrator has looked at the stormwater drainage, and it seems not to be a problem with all the million yardage of astroturf that's going to be put in there, so that doesn't seem to be a problem either. Are there any comments from any of the citizens? Is there anyone here from Cumberland? Or from? Okay. What day did you send out those notices? Do you recall?
Wednesday or Thursday?
It's close.
So they probably only got them today.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second. I think we're ready to vote. All those in favor of approving the land development application for North Allegheny School District, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries.
Move to adopt resolution number 14 of the 2018 series, a resolution applying the pending ordinance doctrine and thereby making immediately effective an ordinance amending Part 13, Planning and Zoning Code of the Codified Ordinances of the Town of McCandless by rezoning certain properties abutting Corporate Drive in the Town of McCandless from C5, which is Commercial Residential District, to C6, which is Industrial District, amending the zoning map of the Town of McCandless accordingly, amending the Planning and Zoning Code to provide zoning regulations for medical marijuana facilities and personal storage facilities, repealing and replacing Article 1337, C6 Industrial District of Part 13 of the Codified Ordinances of the Town of McCandless in its entirety.
I second the motion.
There has been a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 14 of the 2018 series. Are there any comments or questions from council?
Should we explain what it means to have a pending ordinance?
Do you want me to do it?
Sure. You want me to
Go ahead.
jump in on that?
Go ahead.
Yeah, just so the public's aware, and I think all council is very aware of this, but in order to pass a zoning amendment, as you saw tonight, you have to go through a public hearing. Certain reviews have to be done by the county and the planning commission, and ultimately there's a vote to enact that zoning amendment. What you can do kind of as a temporary fix, for lack of a better term, is to pass what's called a pending ordinance resolution. And it essentially notifies the public that council's considering changes to the zoning ordinance, and it prevents an applicant who wants to go in under the old regulations to run in, file an application, and get approved under the old regulations. So while it's not a permanent solution, it's a temporary, essentially, just way to put the public on notice that council's considering these regulations. The final regulations may be a little bit different than what are attached to the pending ordinance, or the pending ordinance resolution. But these will remain in place while council is kind of working out those final details.
Thank you. Any comments from any citizens? Hearing none, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor of adoption of resolution number 14 of the 2018 series, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And all opposed?
Nay.
Roll call vote. Ward 2?
Ward 2,
Aye.
Ward 3,
Aye.
Ward 4,
Nay.
Ward 5,
Aye.
Ward 6,
Aye.
Ward 7,
Aye.
Ward 1.
Aye.
Vote is 6 in favor, 1 against.
May I just make a statement at this point? I voted against this because I don't think a dispensary should be put into a residential area. And that's my reason for voting against it.
Meaning which zone district, Mrs. Powers, would that be, if I may?
The RC district.
Well, also C3 is in residential area.
The vote has been taken. The time for debate was before the vote. We appreciate your comments. The motion has passed.
Thanks for waking me up. Move to appoint Charles Parker as alternative member of the Uniform Construction Code, International Fire Code, and Property Maintenance Code Appeals Board, with a term to commence immediately and expire December 31st, 2019.
I second the motion.
There's been a motion and a second to appoint Charles Parker as the alternative to the Uniform Construction Board, and I second. Any comments from town council?
I mean, all the candidates, there were 3 candidates, they were all outstanding, but Charles sort of stood out a little bit.
Thank you. Any
I would second Mr. Wiskoskis's comments. His qualifications are stellar in a
Yeah.
field of stellar candidates, but he was outstanding.
Right.
Thank you. Any comments from any citizens? Hearing none, there has been a motion and a second for this appointment. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is that anything else for zoning committee?
That's it.
Okay. All right, Public Safety Committee?
I move to adopt resolution number 15 of the 2018 series, a resolution establishing a policy which authorizes the town to enter into an agreement with towing businesses located in the town that meet standards and criteria set forth in the agreement for towing and storage of disabled vehicles in the town of McCandless.
Second.
There has been a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 15, authorizing agreements for towing services in the town. Are there any questions or comments by council? Hearing none, any questions or comments from citizens? Okay, there's been a motion and a second for adoption of resolution 15. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And this concludes the Public Safety Committee meeting.
Thank you. Services Committee?
Madam President, Services Committee has one item. I move to adopt a joint resolution of the Borough of Bradford Woods, Borough of Franklin Park, Township of Marshall, Town of McCandless, Township of Ross, a resolution supporting Northland Public Library's Keystone Recreation, Park, and Conservation Grant application through the Pennsylvania Department of Education in the amount of $568,973, which will be used to renovate and rehabilitate the Northland Public Library with the acknowledgement that the undistributed the undisturbed use of the improvements to the facility as a public library remain for 50 years or the life of the project, whichever is shorter.
I second.
There's been a motion and a second to adopt this joint resolution with the other towns that support the Northland Library. Any comments or questions from council? This is showing great faith that we see our library lasting at least another 50 years. Any comments or questions from the audience? Hearing none, there's been a motion and a second. All those in favor of adopting the resolution for our library, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Public Works Committee.
Madam President, I move to approve a road salt contract with Morton Salt under the bid pricing received by the North Hills Council of Governments, with the bid price being $69.36 per ton for road salt delivered.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the contract with Morton Salt. Is there any comments or questions by council? I think this is an increase of, what, $1?
$2.96 a ton.
$2.96 a ton. Any other questions or comments about that? Any from the citizens? Okay. Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the salt contract with Morton Salt for $69.36 a ton, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Madam President, I move to authorize the council president and town manager to sign an application for submittal to Allegheny County for a mini grant in the amount of $2,000 to update the town's stormwater management ordinance to conform with the recently enacted county stormwater management plan.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to authorize council president and town manager to sign a grant proposal for $2,000. Any questions or comments from anyone from council?
Brief comment, that's the maximum amount that's requested,
Okay.
that can be requested.
So there's been some new laws that were changed, and this is the state's way of trying to help us out with the expenses of changing any ordinances that we may have to be in compliance with these changes. Anything from the audience? Okay. Hearing none, we have a motion and a second to authorize to apply for the mini grant of $2,000 for the town's stormwater management ordinance. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I have for the Public Works.
Recreation Committee.
Madam President, I move to adopt resolution number 16 of the 2018 series, a resolution requesting permission from the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation to place a banner across Perry Highway, Route 19, at Perrymont Road to advertise McCandless Community Day.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to put our Community Day banner across Perrymont Road. We do this every year. Any questions or comments from council? No? Any from the audience? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting resolution number 16 to authorize a banner across Perrymont Road for McCandless Community Day, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Anything else on recreation?
Oh, I'm sorry, no, that's,
Okay. Does anyone have any unfinished business? Any citizen, anything? Okay. Almost. It's almost comment time. Any new business? Anyone on council? Okay. Anyone in the audience? New business? Okay. Now it's time for public comment.
Rita Martin, Grubbs Road. I just want to say I'm so excited that you're going to have a junior council person up there, and that's great. But I have a comment as I was listening tonight. Dave and I were driving up north, and we came to a town, and as we entered the town, the sign said, "Our zoning laws exist to protect our citizens and their homes." I ask you to consider that always when you make changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from any citizens? Yes, ma'am?
I'm not sure if I'm doing this at the appropriate time, but,
You're allowed to make a comment about anything at this time.
okay, so I have just a couple of handouts. I didn't know how many people sat on your board. I only have
We
five.
need your name
Oh,
and your
D.
address.
Ioka, 9330 Aldenford Drive, McCandless, of course. There's only, I think, 5 copies, so maybe.
Did you signed in?
I
You
did.
signed in? I just want to make sure, because
I did. So, just to give you a brief reason of why I'm here, I live on Aldenford Drive, directly behind the construction site for Terrace Place. There is a part of my property, there's a part of Vincentian's property that butts up against the back of mine. I sent Vincentian a letter over a week ago regarding the fact that the grass has not been cut whatsoever in 2018. I expressed my concern about ticks, mosquitoes, because where I live is in an immediate area of where Vincentian has had problems with water accumulating that has drained down to my property. A couple of years ago, with me complaining all the time that it was actually like a swamp area, the ducks were living there, they put a drain in, but they put it on my property and down a few other homes next to mine, instead of putting it on their property. Well, the water continues to come down, roll down from Vincentian into that area, but now it's just a marsh area. There's weeds and grass. Nothing's been done at all in 2018. When I sent Nathan, the project manager, an email, his response was, and I included my email, his email, in my last response email. His response was he, as well as the construction manager of the site, looked at the property and felt that it's only a foot tall, and said he doesn't know how he would be able to get a lawnmower in that area. It should increase the value of our property. He talked about putting a retention pond in, and that was the end of the conversation. I sent him an email back and said, it made me actually go down and get a tape measure, put it outside in the area on top of a brick that would hold it so I could take a photo of the top of the drain that they placed in, and showed him at that time it was over 3 foot tall, and you can see the grass and the weeds behind it that's even taller. I'm concerned, again, we're going into July now. I have a 3-year-old granddaughter that comes over my home. The weeds are now encroaching onto my property, and the fact that they're not willing to do anything, and he told me that the fence, the construction fence was placed. Now they have no way of getting a mower back there. My response was, why wasn't this taken into consideration? I am the only house on that street that has so much space between my back fence and their construction fence. And I think mainly because the exact area that I'm speaking of, when they did maintain the property, the mower could never come down because the riding mowers would get stuck. They would actually have to have the landscapers come down and weed whack the whole area. And that was part of my response to Nathan was, get a gas-powered weed whacker, come down and weed whack it. Do something to bring this under, a reasonable condition. And I haven't had a response to my second email. He's now on vacation for a week. I sent it to the CEO of Vincentian. I'm really kind of at wit's end. I know the township has an ordinance. I've contacted the township, and really to no avail, unfortunately. So I don't want this to really go on much longer. Some of my neighbors have moved to taking it into their own hands, but they don't have a water problem, and some of my neighbors that have done that utilizes Vincentian's property to their benefit. They've extended, whether it's their landscaping or putting wood out back, they use some of their property. I don't. I have, my boundary, they have theirs. I want their property to be maintained so it doesn't affect the safety of myself and my family. So I don't really know where else to turn.
This
you
is a
know.
good place.
Pardon me?
This
I
is a
hope
good
so.
place. That is my ward, and I can tell you that I will meet with our land use administrator.
Great.
And we will copy you on every action that we take.
Okay.
And see what can be done, what needs to be done, what's not being done.
Okay.
And we will take care of it. We have your contact information here.
Great, thank you.
And we will do that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn to July 2nd, 2018 at 6:15 PM for personnel matters.
I second the motion.
There's been a motion and a second to adjourn to July 2nd. That's not one of our normal meetings, but we're going to be interviewing police candidates. So we just don't have enough time to get it done on scheduled meetings, so we made a special night. So that's what we're doing there. Any comments, questions about it? Anyone? Okay. All those in favor of adjourning to July 2nd indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?